What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my three great co-hosts, Fede Perez, Britos, and Ralph Hannah. And guys, here we are, all four of us, the first episode of 2023 with all of us here. And what better way to get the gang all reunited, because the Paraguayan League is back. Yes, the Apertura begins this weekend. It restarts after kind of a little bit of a short break after the World Cup, but obviously we are back. Obviously, we've got some teams to talk about, give some predictions, how we really feel about this tournament, talk about some of the teams that have already played some games and some friendlies, some teams that are going to be playing in a game before the season starts. We'll also be talking about what's been going on for the Paraguay U20 side, as they are currently in the South American U20 Championship. At the time of recording, they've already won one game and tied one against Colombia and beat Argentina, which means if they win today against Peru, they would probably advance to the final round, which would mean perhaps certain qualification to the World Cup in Indonesia. But let's get started here, guys. I'm excited. Let's talk to someone who wasn't here last week after dealing with some sort of mysterious illness. We don't even know what it was. It could be one of those like weird flus that you get. But Fede Perez, how are you, man? And it's good to see you on this, now here on the first episode 2023 with you in it.
Yeah, you said a short break, Roberto. It felt like forever, to be honest. When there's no football going around, I get kind of bored. I don't know what to do. I start kicking the ball around. Wonderful to be with you all again. Another year. Almost the end of the first month already, right? Almost the end of January when everybody's listening to this. So yeah, thankfully I got through the vacations, the heat, the hot weather here. We're still under summer over here. So yeah, the football's gonna start with high temperatures. These last preseason games have been like that also for most teams already, or at least that's the speech right now, right? Hey, we're ready. Everybody's looking good. That's usually the speech that you hear during the preseason. But yeah, it's almost time for those official matches, the matches that are worth seeing. And yeah, we obviously got to talk about the teams, the new teams also in this first division. I'm always happy to do this show, this podcast with all of you. This podcast that just keeps on growing and growing. I was looking at our numbers. We got 40 views on our first YouTube video of the year. So hopefully that keeps on growing the numbers. Hopefully we get more and more people commenting, leaving a comment down there. We're always reading you guys, whatever you want to suggest, whatever you want to say, we're always with you guys. This show is not just for us to get our minds out there to speak about our football, about what we want, but we also want to give our audience what they want to hear. I'm ready. I'm pumped. I already saw my first match of the year. I was at Cerro Porteño's ground the other day with the Noche Azulgrana, the Azulgrana night. They had their friendly against the Bolivian team, so I can talk a little bit about that. I'm following obviously what's going on with the under 20 team, and the expectations are high, Roberto. This year might come with a couple of surprises. We're gonna have big games also, and it's all gonna be here like it's been 3-4 years now here in Guarani Vision.
Everything's starting to go back to the way it always been with football going on in the country. Let's go all the way to South Beach to Maria on this one, because obviously here we are at the start of a new season. Obviously, all these teams, like I said, the 12 teams actually in the Apertura, all of them coming with a dream, obviously, depending on what their status is. It could be to be champions, it could be just to stay there, or it could be just to not get relegated. I mean, there's always a lot to go on, and I think that's always exciting. When you look at some of the teams that we got in this new league. So yeah, I mean, certainly it's going to be a very interesting season, and obviously one with the big teams like Olimpia, Cerro, Libertad, Nacional, Guarani, and so on. They'll be looking to hopefully capture silverware this year.
Yeah, hey guys, thank you for joining us again, and I'm happy that Fede is back with us and that he's healthy again. Yeah, I'm excited for this new season. So that it's gonna be an exciting one for our teams, Olimpia especially. Like I said last time, I think they're looking ahead into continuing to get another another championship, and all the signings that they've been doing. I think that speaks a lot about them wanting to improve their team, and like I was saying last time, they want to know what works best, and just making sure that their team is comfortable, and their signings as well are good signings, and that the fans are happy with that as well. So Yeah, just looking forward to, seeing a good tournament, dramatic, like always. There's always drama in Paraguay football. So looking forward to that, and, just looking to talk to you guys more about the season as well.
Absolutely. We're here for a really good season. It's hard to believe, like Fede said, we're already a couple days until February, and we've only got a couple of football that's only going to start, this weekend. But thankfully, what we see in Colombia, and going into Ralph on this one, we do see some players who could be on their way into the first teams in Paraguay. Obviously, a lot of players that are playing currently in the South American U20 Championship. Currently, like I said, unbeaten so far after 2 games, in a really good position to qualify to the final round. But I think this is also an opportunity for a lot of people, for those that have been used to seeing the Paraguayan players in the league. It also gives an opportunity for some that maybe haven't had a chance at their club, maybe playing on a youth level or a reserve level, maybe to impress the coaches there in the first division, or even the national team managers, or even scouts around the world to get an opportunity that they probably won't get if they didn't play this tournament.
Yeah, that's right. Hi, Roberto. Hi, everybody. Yeah, the under-20s has been good so far for Paraguay. And like you said, it's an interesting mix, that squad of, you have some players with lots of first team experience, like Mati Segovia, for example, or Diego Gomez, who played most of the games for Libertad towards the end of last season. But then you have other guys like the top scorer, Alan Wilk, who's never played a senior game for Olympia. So these really are kind of undiscovered players for many people that, even though they follow the Paraguayan league, won't have seen some of these players. So it's very interesting, and I think it's been a great start so far. So we can talk more about that for sure, of how Paraguay have been getting on. And then about the league, I mean, yeah, it's exciting. I don't know if we'll have too many surprises. I'm wondering who's going to be the Nacional of this season, because I don't think it will be Nacional again, if I'm honest. But then I'm wondering, like, surely one of the teams is going to surprise us. So we'll have to have a think about who that might be. But I'm looking forward to it. It's getting exciting that we can finally start watching some Paraguayan football again, because it's been a while.
Absolutely. Well, let's actually go back to obviously what's going on in Colombia, because as we speak right now, obviously this is the only football that's going on involving Paraguayan teams, aside from friendlies that we'll talk about in a bit. But obviously Paraguay are playing currently in the U20 Championship to qualify for the World Cup in Indonesia. It's been 10 years. Hard to believe that they qualify for a U20 World Cup, and this has been a Paraguay side who've historically, like if you look at history, have always been in these competitions. If correct me if I'm wrong, I think they've been to like 9 of the 23 U20 World Cup, which is a really good record considering how vital youth football is over there in Paraguay. But looking at some of the games that they've already played, we spoke about it last week, how they were really in a tough group, and they really needed to get results against the big teams to be able to have a chance at qualifying to the final stage. Look no further than in the first 2 games. They took the lead in both of them, actually, but the first one that they did, coming from a player like you had mentioned, Ralph, and someone who's getting a lot of attention now, actually, in Alan Wilk, obviously, scoring the penalty. He was the top goal scorer in the UDESUR last year when Paraguay won the gold medal. So obviously he's retaining his form again in this tournament, scoring the penalty in the 6th minute before Colombia equalized early in the second half. Got a good point against the host, but then the game against Argentina, obviously the reigning world champions, the manager Javier Mascherano, a lot of these players on the Argentina side have already been given opportunities not to play, obviously, for the first team, but be it's like sparring or reserves for the world champions. And Paraguay go and take the lead again, thanks to a goal from Gilberto Flores before Argentina equalized from Maximiliano Perón. But then, obviously, another penalty for Paraguay, and Alan Wilkes scores again. So, Fede, I'll go to you on this one. I mean, certainly the results for Paraguay have been going well so far, but they've been doing what they've got to do, getting the wins against Argentina. They should have won the game against Colombia, but I think, getting results against the host is always a positive result. And now they're in a position where, they're taking on a Peru side who haven't won a single game yet so far. And, they're in a good position to qualify to the next round. And again, now everything would change if they do that, and kind of the perspective on this team.
Yeah, going into our third game of the competition, I'm feeling pretty good about this team, to be honest with you guys, after what I saw in these two games. In that first game, we saw how the team kind of struggled to keep up with the Colombians, especially on that second half. But we really ended up very tired, even with a couple of players that look like we're injured, like Diego Gomez, which is a star in this team. Also, you guys mentioned Matias Segovia, which has been, I think, the biggest star yet in these two games. We probably should have scored even a little more on those first 45 minutes. We were attacking, we were having the best chances. Colombia was not dealing well with us. And then the second half started, and Colombia got their goal right away. So the match totally changed, and they really had a lot of opportunities to take it away from us. But it ended up being a good tie against the home team with the home crowd also right there in the stadium. It was not an easy first game for Paraguay. Always the players are nervous for the debut, for the first game. So it wasn't going to be easy to play for these guys. Even though I'm repeating what I said, I loved what I saw in those 45 minutes, because it was what we're hearing from the coach before the tournament, that the Paraguay was going to go into this tournament and attack, just like we saw in the Other Sur last year. A team that wants to propose, that wants to have the ball, that wants to be important in midfield. And you can see that with Segovia, especially. He's our playmaker, and I'm really happy that he's getting that spotlight that I think everybody here in Paraguay knows that he can have. He also has to come back and defend a little more, because he's not your typical 10. Teams don't play like that anymore. You just can't have a creative player floating around there in midfield and not do anything when your team doesn't have the ball. So maybe he's getting a little tired running back the pitch, but when he has the ball, he's unstoppable. I mean, he's taking players out, beating pretty much anyone in this tournament on the one-on-one. I want to see him against Brazil in a couple of games, see if he can do that against one of the big teams. Also, he did it against Argentina. So, he's catching people's attention. And Mati Segovia, he's probably our first big gem of the year, I would say. The first star that we're seeing, and the under 20 is the last step before you make it to the national team. So it's really good that we're seeing this level from him. But I'm really liking the whole team itself. I mean, this under 20 wants to compete. You can see that the guys have that fire in them. The team looks very united. Also, you see them hugging and kissing every time they score. So I'm liking that spirit. You need that team spirit, especially in a competition like this when you're playing pretty much every 3 days. You need a full roster. Also, you need those players that are coming in to make a difference. And we kind of saw that against Argentina already. So in the way I see it, there's no excuses. I mean, they did the whole long process to build a good team. They had good results going into this tournament. So my expectations are really high. I want to go back to a World Cup. If it's an under 20 World Cup, I'm going to be really happy if that's the way this year starts, Ralph.
Yeah, that's right. It's the first time since 2013 that they might go to the World Cup. And interestingly, in 2013, Paraguay beat Argentina in their second game 2-1, which is what happened here as well at the weekend, beating Argentina 2-1. So it's a good omen for those that like to believe in that kind of thing. But it's a really good team. I think one of the strengths of this Paraguay team is that they're actually the same team that played in Other Sur pretty much. Whereas what I've seen is from a lot of the other countries, they didn't take their best sides to Other Sur. And so now they put in some new players. Argentina, for example, had lots of European-based players in that team. But maybe they don't have some of the organization and the coordination that Aldo Bobadilla has managed to get with Paraguay. Because Paraguay were very comfortable without the ball. They play a lot without the ball, but then they're very comfortable. They're organized. And then when they do get the ball, it's very quick, using people like Mati Segovia or Diego Gonzalez on the other side. And they're very quick to attack. And they have very clear concepts of what they want to do. And it was interesting that in the Argentina game, compared to the Colombia game, they actually played a 4-4-2. So in the Colombia game, it was 4-3-3. He switched to 4-4-2 because he brought in Rolon to play up front with Wilt. And Paraguay was still very good with that. So the team is flexible, adaptable, which is really important. And that totally caught out Mascherano, I think, because Argentina, just for long periods of the game, had nobody in the middle. Like they just left a huge space in the middle. And I think they weren't expecting Paraguay to line up the way they did. So that also helped as well. I guess one player just to talk about from a defensive side, but it's actually because he's very good going forward, is the left back, Cantero. He's also at Guarani. He's been really good so far and impressive on that left-hand side. So there's lots of players we're seeing that are having an impact here. And Paraguay going to this game, or as we record, they're going into the game against Peru. Is a team they beat 6-0 at Odesur. For sure, the Peruvian side is a bit stronger now with some of the call-ups, but you would hope they would be able to get the 3 points and then see themselves through. And remember, this was the group of death, because you had not just the host Colombia, you have Argentina and Brazil. I mean, you have 3 massive teams in this group. If they can get through this, in theory, the final round should be an easier prospect with maybe only Uruguay kind of the strongest side in the other group over there. So it's very positive. And if they go to a World Cup, it's great for the national team. It's great for these players. They get even more exposure for sure. There's lots of scouts looking at lots of them. I know that as a fact. So it's very good for the whole future of the national team if your under 20s can perform well. So it's been great so far. Long may it continue.
I wanted to jump in, and Maria, you can go in as well, because I think, looking at someone like Alan Wilk, for example, obviously he's already gotten the attention, like Fede and Ralph had mentioned. This is a guy that hasn't played yet for Olympia's first team, but I would think that, and obviously Olympia have done well so far in their transfers, and we'll talk about them in a bit in our league preview. But I gotta say, like, if I'm Julio Cesar Cáceres and I'm looking at, and I'm sure he's getting his notice of what he's been doing, at what he did at the Odesur, what he did at youth level, and he has a professional contract. But listen, if he wants to be serious about putting this guy in, I tie him up to that first team, and I wouldn't say maybe make him a starter per se, because I just think it's maybe, unless he's really confident in doing it, but this has to be someone that they need to put on that first team. And it's like a lot of these other players as well. Like it said, I think these performances against these teams, kind of helps boost them up, not just for them to get more opportunities at like their clubs in Paraguay, but also to get them more attention to other scouts and other teams around the world.
Yeah, I was thinking about him, Alan. He's been getting a lot of attention lately, and I think that's important, because you're playing in these games, in the sub-20s, and you're getting more attention from your coach, and hopefully this helps him see, like, this helps his coach what his capabilities are, and see that he has what it takes to be in the first team. It would be good if he could start, because that will bring a gateway into him continuing to Olympia, and then just being a starter for a long time, and just having more experience as a starter. But other than that, yeah, I think he's one of the great prospects, and I think that he has a good future in his hands. I just hope that they know what to do with him, and that he doesn't just stay in the background. Other than that, I think this World Cup, this 20 World Cups are great for our national team, that you guys were saying. I've been talking about this for a long time. We need to look into the youngsters, and this is the time. And I think this is the time that kids can show what they have, and also not only that, but put our name back again into the game. Show what Paraguay is capable of. I love that they are being more attacking, like Fede was saying, because that's something needing to work on, not just being a defensive Paraguayan traditional team that they've always been, but more attacking and just putting more goals out there. I feel like we haven't been able to work on that part, and as a national team, making scoring, not just always a 1-1, a 2-1. Give us more goals, give us something to celebrate. So I think that's great that they're working on that. But other than that, I'm looking forward to these kids. I hope that they really shine and that they enjoy it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's always the main thing as well. Like, obviously, this is something that, irregardless of how they do in this tournament, this is the future. This is literally, some of these guys will probably be in the national team this year. I would hope so, after, especially if they do qualify for the World Cup or something. Like, it's almost as if like Guillermo Esqueloto has to look as like, no, okay, we need to install them into the first team and just go from there. But I think it's also credit to like Ralph had mentioned, the work of Aldo Bobadilla. Obviously, Aldo Bobadilla was a former goalkeeper for Paraguay. He had done a lot of stuff in the lower leagues, done a lot of youth football as well. So this is a manager, obviously, with experience working with youngsters beforehand. And so he has a knack of what it works like going into what this tournament can go, Fede. So I think, for someone like him, he's in a good spot. I think there was a lot of doubts about him when he was first appointed U20 manager, but I mean, obviously he's proving the critics wrong by getting this Odesur win. And hell, if they make it to a World Cup, I think that would probably obviously boost his reputation even further in comparison to former managers of the U20 side.
Yeah, and usually you get managers here without much experience, right? That get the under 20, and it's not Aldo Bobadilla's case. I mean, you can look at his career as a player, and then you can look at what he's done already as a head coach. He was champion in Colombia, where this tournament is being played, and he's very well known over there, very respected, and I think he's just making a bigger name for himself as the games goes on. As you're seeing this team the way it's been playing. I think I said it last year. I mean, I think it will be even natural for him to be the next, or to be considered the next coach for the national team, for the senior national team, just because he's now working with this young side, and most of these players are going to end up there eventually. Hopefully they will. Hopefully the clubs here in Paraguay are open also after a tournament like this, when the offers come, to sell the players and not contain them, not have them there as a sub, sitting pretty much all year round, like this happened to most of these guys in these last tournaments. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if those offers end up coming. It's going to be even more important if we make it to the World Cup. Even more eyes are going to be on top of these players, on top of Paraguay. So I think we just got to knack that. We got to get it. We got to get it done, Roberto. We have to get into the next phase, and then we have to get to the World Cup. The work has just begun in this Sudamericano.
It's only getting started right now, so let's hope that Paraguay do indeed impress us all and qualify next time that we do speak. But let's switch gears to what's really going to happen this weekend, what we've been really excited to talk about. The Paraguayan League, the Apertura, is back, like I had mentioned. Obviously, 12 teams looking to become the Paraguayan League champions, defending champions Olimpia, who actually won't be playing in the first few games. They actually will be playing in their last game this weekend, because they play the Paraguayan Supercopa against Ameliano, who won the Paraguayan Cup. Obviously, the league champions was Olimpia, so they play that Super Cup on Wednesday. But they will take on a team that has returned to the first division in Sportivo Luqueño. Looking at some of the games that we've got at our disposal, we got 6 of them. Looking in order, we start things off with a really interesting clash, actually. 2 heavyweights to start off the league. Libertad against Guarani on Friday. Then we got Trinidense, the returning Trinidense after a few years in the second division, taking on Tacuaru. Guairenia taking on Nacional. General Caballero of Juan León Mallorquín taking on Resistencia. Cerro Porteño, obviously, who had just come from their playing the Noche Azulgrana against Oriente Petrolero. They're playing Sportivo Almeriano, and then closing it off, Olimpia Sportivo Luqueño. So, right from the get-go, and I'll go to Ralph on this one, because I think right from the get-go, we do see really tasty matches, at least to start off the league. And I think that's always been the thing. But like you had mentioned beforehand, I it's going to be interesting to see if there's any team that does surprise, because I don't see anyone really going in for the punch or going in for a surprise like maybe Nacional have done, or even what I need to an extent. I think this is still going to be probably a season still dominated by the big teams, but I'm curious to see if there's going to be one that kind of stands out over the rest, or we do get another thrilling league that we get that always is defined at the end of the season. So just like your thoughts on how you view this season overall and just what you expect from it.
Yeah, well, the Clausura ended up being a big race between Olimpia and Cerro, the two kind of classic rivals and the biggest 2 sides historically in Paraguay. And I kind of see that happening again in the Apertura. I mean, Olimpia have just got better. They were good enough to win the championship, and now they've brought in Buera, who was the top scorer and really that's a great strike of them to have. They managed to bring in Junior Barreto, who was a central defender that maybe Cerro were after, but Olimpia got him, so they've strengthened those lines there. You have Marcos Gomez really came through as a very important player in that clausura. He's only 21, so getting better. I mean, it's a very strong team, Olimpia. Cerro, we talked about last week, they've strengthened up front, which is where they really needed to do so. Maybe they're going to be missing a little bit in defense without Alexis Duarte, but still, I think a very organized team when they have a lot of possession, so they're hard to break down to score against. And then with Libertad is a very interesting situation because Libertad has not signed anybody and they've lost a lot of players. I mean, Bocanegra is gone, Marcelo Diaz has gone, Ivan Franco's gone on loan, as we talked about. So that's an interesting situation. We're kind of waiting to see because Libertad have money there lying around in case they wanted to buy someone. For now, they're kind of relying on a lot of their loanees coming back. A lot of players have also come back from loans. So between the big three, you kind of think, well, it's Olimpia and Cerro again that have done the most in the market. And then you ask me about the surprise. I don't know. I mean, it's Nacional, of course, have now lost Bruera to Olimpia. So that's a huge loss. That was Nacional needed those goals from Bruera to have a chance. That's really what propelled them up the league. You look at maybe Guarani. Guarani has a very exciting young team. We just mentioned Matias Segovia. They also have a guy, Romeo Benitez, but he might be injured for most of the season. But they have a lot of young players. The Cantero, who we spoke about, the left back, is actually also at Guarani. So maybe there's something there. But of course, they've lost Fernando Fernandez, their main striker, who's gone to Cerro. So this is why it's hard to find who's that team that could surprise us. I mean, we should remember that Luqueño is a very big team, even though they were in second division. They've recruited lots of kind of experienced old heads. They've got Paulo Aguilar has come back, Osvaldo Martinez. They got Jorge Mendoza. So a lot of players that have been around and have experience. Maybe that can help them. But at the moment, it's really hard to look past the big two in Cerro and Olimpia. Even Libertad, as I was saying, they've lost a lot of players. So you wonder really if they will be competing as much as they could. A lot depends on with people coming back from injury for Libertad and from loans. Maybe they feel they have enough depth, and that's why they haven't signed anybody.
Yeah, there are clearly three teams that have the bigger budget, and that actually is very important when you want to build a good team, right? Olimpia, for the first time in several years, had the opportunity to sign players, so that makes them even stronger than they were last year. And even with all those problems, they were still champions several times here in Paraguay, winning the Copa Paraguay and being champions last year in the Clausura. So yeah, in the way I see it, they're number one candidate, and right behind them, I would put Libertad. I did not like what I saw from Cerro Porteño. They lost a couple of important players. I don't know how they're going to deal with those defensive players, that role, that spot open that Alexis Duarte left, especially. He went to Russia. He left to Russia, and they did not sign anybody yet. Hopefully they do. They need somebody there. They improvised with Robert Pires Damota the other day, and that clearly did not work. They brought in Del Valle, a young player that has had a couple of seasons already, but has never gotten that starting role. Let's see if that's enough for him or enough for Cerro. It wasn't enough against Oriente Petrolero. Cerro did not look 100% yet. So you need a team that can be strong back there. Obviously, they do have a lot of exciting attacking players with Diego Churin coming back, with Fernando Fernandez, the top scorer of last season, also signing for Cerro Porteño. So they clearly have enough power to attack. Hopefully they start getting those goals right from the forwards, which was something that they really needed last year and they couldn't get done. Robert Morales coming back from injury, same for Sergio Diaz. So clearly as for the attacking in Cerro Porteño, I think Cerro fans are pretty pleased with what they got right there. And Libertad has everything to be champions again. Vidal, especially coming back from injury, if he's 100%, I think he could be a difference maker for Libertad, because they kept Oscar Tacuara Cardoso. They were able to keep also Roque Santa Cruz. These guys look kind of old for everybody, but they can still do it in the league. And if they start the season 100% strong, scoring is going to be really hard to stop Libertad, especially when they play home games. I'm going to go with them. I'm going to go with Libertad, Olimpia. I think one of those two teams are going to take it, this Apertura. And especially because these two teams are going to be kind of relaxed on the international stage also. Cerro has to start off early, try to make it to the group stage in Libertadores. Nacional is going to have their head full with the first stage. They're the first ones to start their way in the Libertadores and see if they can make it to the group stage. So they're going to have a tight calendar. And then you have the big surprises, like Ralph was saying. I have my big expectations from Luqueño, but you know, they always have the pressure from their fans. I don't know if they really built a team to be a champion in the Apertura, but they do really have a nice project there for the long year. And I do think they have the budget now to try to have a competitive team. And then you have the cases of teams that have really good head coaches, Roberto. I mean, Guarani with Rodo Lopez, you have Guaireña Tiburon Torres. That's a coach that has experience and he's building something from scratch. In General Caballero, you have Humberto Ovelar, who was the coach that brought them to first division. They kept him for this year. Resistencia took the coach that brought Luqueño to first division again, Sassul. So you don't know what we're going to get out of those teams. They brought in so many players, Brazilians, Argentinians, players pretty much unknown to the Paraguayan scene. And I want to see them in these first games just to see really what they built, to see who can be the surprise this season. But I do think we're going to have one of those teams surprising the big teams and maybe stopping and hopefully being there in those top spots, trying to make it to the championship in this Apertura.
I think it's a little earlier to do predictions, but I'm gonna always go with Olimpia, returning champions. And it's always gonna be a battle between Olimpia and Cerro. Traditionally that's been how it is. So I'm gonna go with Olimpia again. I think that Cerro is gonna give them a good run for their money, because they did sign good players, and it's looking like they're getting their squad together, and I think that they want to get that kind of like revenge from last clausura. And like I said earlier, Olimpia also has been doing some good signings. They're working on getting better players and building a nice team. And I just think that they've been doing that. Their luck has been going well. They with the championship that they won in the clausura, they did gain some money. And after all the bad luck that they went through the past 2 years or so, I think that they're finally back to being on their feet and giving their fans what they've been wanting for a while. For the surprise team, I think I'm gonna go with like a team like Sportivo Trinidense. They did sign Lucas Barrios that came back from retirement, and I think that's great because he's always been a good player and everybody loves him. So I just the fact that they did that, I think that Barrios could probably be motivated and give this small little team a good run for their money as well. It's not easy to convince someone to come back from retirement, and the fact that they did that will hopefully be a good turnaround for them. So
well-organized club. They have Johnny Santana working there, a former national team player. Great stuff. He's doing a very good job in Trinidense. Ralph, just to be clear, who were your predictions? Can you repeat that? And then I'll repeat mine.
I was just trying to search if there was anywhere online you can find like the betting odds for who are the favorites, but I don't think the Paraguayan company Apostada, I don't think they do that. They do like individual games, but not the overall title. So I would assume that Olimpia are the favorites. So maybe it's boring to choose, but I think I would go for Olimpia because what they really have is the core of the team that won the league. They've added very well in key positions. And then what Julio César Cáceres is kind of proving is he's a really good coach. I mean, at first you thought maybe it was a bit of luck, some of the titles he won with the Copa, the Super Copa and stuff. But now it's like, well, he's proving himself to really be a top manager. So I think I'll go for Olimpia. And for the surprise team, I'll just put in, just to be different, I'll put in Guarani. And the reason why, because I do like the fact that they picked up Roberto Torres as a coach, and so they could be a bit of a surprise in there.
No, Olimpia has so much to offer this season. I mean, they kept Derlis Gonzalez. I don't know how they kept all their players, to be honest, with all those depth that they supposedly have around. But yeah, there's so many people with money in Olimpia, and they're all helping out. They're all chipping in with a president that has apparently enough in his wallet to keep this team together after being champions. They pretty much didn't sell anybody. So yeah, the way I see it is just the way that Ralph sees it. The coach is so comfortable right now that he might even put his son eventually in this team. Thiago Cáceres, he played for the reserve team the other day, and he eventually might start or get some time in this Apertura or the Clausura. He's on the roster. So, I think that's how comfortable right now Julio Cáceres is after ending the year. He has so many young players also that can come about, and all that, everything that they brought. I mean, all players that really have the level to play at Olimpia. And I think Olimpia is the #1 favorite. And then right there is Libertad. I said it before. I think Libertad are gonna be tight right there to the last matches. And the letdown, the way I see it is going to be Cerro Porteño. I did not like that environment around the team the other day. Chiqui Arce needs to win a championship. If not, he might leave that spot early if he's not in the fight. So talking about those three big teams, right? Olimpia, first spot. Libertad with my second candidate. And as a surprise, I'm going to go with Tacuary. I'm going to go with Tacuary. Tacuary actually ended up the year really well. And even though they have a coach that does not have much experience or hasn't done anything huge yet, I think they have quality players, especially Valdez. That's the player to follow. He had a great season last year around. So my surprise, or my team to follow, a team that could really put in danger the big teams, is going to be Tacuary. But all of these teams could be surprises, Roberto. We don't know what they're going to bring this season.
We don't really know. This could all be a case of how maybe Olimpia just fall flat on their face and self-destruct. I'm just going based on our predictions, because I do agree. I think we're all in agreement here. I think Olimpia, if there were betting favorites for the overall winner, like Ralph had mentioned, I think they would be up there. I think they have, not just because they're defending champions, but I think they have probably the best side, the best players. They were able to retain a lot of their good players while also gaining a lot of the good players that had come from the Paraguayan league. So no, I agree. I think Olimpia are the clear favorites. For me, my prediction, they're going to be the champion of the Apertura, another title for Julio César Cáceres on his mount. And I'll even go a bit further and say that he'll win the Super Copa this week, actually. So that could be 2 titles in the short span of 6 months. So yeah, that would be a big thing for him. I think, yeah, like you had said, I think Libertad, they're a side that, like Ralph had said, they haven't spent a lot and they have the money that they need. So they're kind of really working with house money, really. So they're in a spot where if they need to spend, they'll do it, but they're not in that position because of the way that they have been playing so far, that I think they will challenge Olimpia. For me, I think for Cerro, and it pains for me to say this as a fan, I'm not convinced by the side. I think Fede is right. I think what we saw against Oriente Petrolero, which again, it's a friendly, you don't really take into high consideration that being detrimental to your season. But you look at the way that they've been playing, how they closed it out, how they really didn't fill out some of the main issues that had been going on. Yes, they brought in Federico Fernandez, but how useful will he be in the matches that he plays? Still need to find someone to slot into, someone to replace Duarte, for example. And just so many things going on. I think they're going to underwhelm. It pains me to say this, but I think they're going to have a really underwhelming season, which that could be enough to maybe, like you said, take Chiqui Arce out of his role. And yeah, that would be kind of an issue to have, especially considering what they can probably do in the Libertadores. Is maybe they're saving grace, maybe get into a Sudamericana if things go badly and see what happens there. And in terms of a surprise, oh man, everyone's had different options. People have said Tacuary, some people have said teams like Trinidense, Guarani as well. I mean, I kind of want to be different and pick another one, but I'm gonna have to choose one of those three sides that you guys picked, and I'm gonna side with Maria on this one. Actually, I'm gonna pick Trinidense. I think, like you had said, Lucas Barrios coming in. This is a side that typically, sides that obviously have that like go into the first division after quite some time. They kind of have that kind of boost, that kind of confidence. I've kind of seen that from previous teams like Ameliano, like Guarani, Resistencia in their time. They always have that like little bit of a bounce where they go in and they kind of surprise. And I think that's going to be Trinidense on this one. So I don't see them obviously fighting for the title or anything like that, but I do see them getting some point that might be useful enough for them to get out of relegation, maybe qualify for a Sudamericana or something like that. So yeah, I mean, for me, I think Trinidense might be the team that could surprise all of us in this league. But like Fede had mentioned, anything can happen. There could be surprises here and there. Any team can go. That's the beauty of our league, that there's just anything goes. And yes, obviously teams like Cerro, Olimpia, Libertad, they've always have the favorites when you look at it on paper and the wealth that they have. But I think it's just a surprise that anything can happen, and I think it's going to be expected. Who may it be? We don't know, but we'll definitely talk about it in the next few episodes that we cover the Paraguayan League and close out another great episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, Maria Britos, and Ralph Hannah, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.